welcome to Let Me Say This. Let me ask you, who is Ricky West II?
I am a godfather. I am a husband. I am a son of God. I am born again, and I like to start with those because that's really my base. Because everything else is extra at the end of the day. I am, a man of intelligence, wisdom, education, and best of all, I am a man of dreams. I am truly a dream chaser. Um, and so, um, former college professor, former IT, cyber specialist type thing. And so, but most of all, chase my dreams. I am a dream chaser.
Dream chaser. Wow, I love that. And when I hear you say that you're a dream chaser, that makes me, that immediately, first thing popped in my mind was the Langston Hughes poem, A Dream Deferred. When he talks about what is that to defer a dream and what does that do to the person or the human psyche when that happens. So tell me, what is a dream chaser?
So, it's a quote I heard. I can't remember the author at the point, but the quote mentioned that a dream happens twice,
Mm,
once in your mind and in reality.
mhm,
And for me, I am God has truly given me the vision to see my future, to
mm,
see, blueprints of ideas every day. And it's like I wake up writing intricate details to ideals,
mhm.
and it's scary because when I look back at it, when I really wake up and I look back at my notes, I'm like, wow, this is a whole book. Wow, this is a whole business. You know, it's over the years, it's like it took some time to understand where these visions come in at because it's like something on page 10 in my book that I launched it 5 years later, and it's a
Mhm.
successful business. And it's like, wow, and so for me, chasing dreams is being one to be able to understand when it's a dream and being able to understand the processes and the steps and the instructions that comes with it, you know. But it's another thing to make it your reality. And that's what I think sometimes we as people we chase the ideal of dreams, but some of us chase the reality of the manifestation of the dream. And so for me, I am a full scope a full scope dream chaser.
Mhm.
I've, graduated to the end, Um and that's and I spend most of my life chasing my dreams. It's to the point where one of the um, milestones that I was able to uh, experience was that I ran out of dreams. Because I think
Wow.
most people have a dream list.
Mhm,
Some people call it a bucket list, but then I have a dream list.
mhm.
And at about 5 years ago, I've literally accomplished my dream list to where I had the opportunity to where I had to force myself in meditation to, all right, God, I need a new set of dreams, you know,
Mm.
and I don't think that, people put spotlight on that milestone or if make it a thing because some people say, well, it's a bucket list. I got the rest of my life to do it. I want to accomplish this in the next couple of months, that type of thing. So,
I love that. You ran out of dreams.
right,
That is the first time I've ever heard anyone say they ran out of dreams. So congratulations to you. And I know you have a whole new set of dreams that you're chasing. So
very
good
much
for you.
so.
All right. So my next question is your first two lines of your LinkedIn bio read, Ricky is very intelligent and driven to satisfy the organization's mission and objectives. Loves working in a team environment, yet has the knowledge and leadership skills to hold the fort down. I found it really interesting. Why did you mention your ability to hold the fort down alone?
I am one of those, I am one of those behind the scenes teams player. I
Mm.
don't seek credit. I don't seek the spotlight. I don't even want to be the person in front of the mic. But because of the attributes I bring to the table or any team, is I have the ability to be, profound enough to hold down the fort while everybody else do their part. I am a man that plays in his lane, and my lane is sustainable enough to hold down the house, that type thing. But, my intelligence is wise enough to where I don't need the credit or the tagline to be the person I am, you know. And so that's where that comes from.
How how did your physical health how did that carry over into your mental health? May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and so we're talking about mental health. So all of my guests that come onto my show in the month of May, I'm talking to them about mental health as
Right.
an entrepreneur because it is an issue. It is a thing. A lot of times people feel like, oh, I'm good. Um, and I'm sure you are good, but but there's, and then especially in communities of color,
Right.
there is not just Black people, but brown people, Asian Americans,
Right.
all colors, all people of color.
Right.
We have the same thing in common where we feel like, oh, if I'm not feeling right mentally, there's something I can't say anything, or I don't ask for help, or you
Right.
don't tell anybody outside of your family. So how did your quest for health, overall health, did any mental health factor into that?
So I'm gonna be real, some transparency here. Give you some of the juice.
Mhm.
So at the beginning of the pandemic, I was I was on a mental roller coaster. I
Mhm.
wasn't good mentally. I was having a bit of identity crisis before the pandemic, and um, where it's not a solution, but one of the mechanism to recover was to dive deep even more into my business and allow work to be that outlet. Um, before the and even at the brink of the pandemic, you know, Bridget Cyber had momentum. Like we had traction and we was getting seen and recognized, and new contracts were coming in. And then the pandemic really took shape, and it's like everything stopped. So what was my outlet, I'm now forced to deal with
Mm.
the mental imbalance,
Mm.
being closed and not having customers and not having students. And
Mhm.
so that's where cycling became that new outlet. And but then too, as a business owner, having, slowly trying to open or excuse me, slowly trying to repurpose and redevelop the brand,
Mhm.
after being closed for X amount of months. Um, you know, and I utilized that time to redevelop and redesign the school. So to relaunch, it wasn't relaunched to that previous momentum scope that we had, but from scratch, you know? And so mentally, I was all over the place.
Mm.
Mentally, personally, personally, I was on a roller coaster, and I was dealing with a lot of personal things, and not to knowing that everybody was in there that's an entrepreneur that's in my network, they were all facing the same thing. So it was hard to have that sit down conversation with anybody because everybody was mentally imbalanced from their company standpoint. I was
Mhm.
mentally imbalanced from a personal standpoint that, you know,
Carried
ran over
over
into the
into the
yeah.
business.
Ooh, that's a good question. And so one thing that I miss about high school,
Mm.
right,
You go
is
all the way back to high school.
right, because this really is where the true experience can come from for
Okay.
Bridge and Cyber.
Okay.
One thing I miss about high school is 2 days a week. I got to skip class and go to a trade school.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, me being a kinesthetic and visual learner, the trade school spoke to that learning style for me. I picked up construction
Mm-hmm.
at the trade school, and every day I expanded upon the confidence levels of how to be a master journeyman in that as element, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was no lectures, it was truly education, what I felt like education awareness was supposed to be, right? You know, I had the confidence that if college did not work, could fall back on construction, right? Years later, as you know, I would say the second half of my career, which is the current season, I transitioned from IT to cyber. And cyber was new to me, so I was self-taught. And one thing about the industry is that the industry is made up of accelerated learning. It's one thing to train, it's one thing to make aware of.
Mm.
There's a lot of trainers, but there was not enough awareness. But the demand for the industry showcased that there's a deficit in employment within the industry because there's a lot of people being trained, but there's not a lot of practical application being met. So for me, I realized that you know, in order to satisfy the demand of the industry, there needs to be a holistic practical practical pipeline in place to not only train but to also develop talent. And that I found a loophole in the industry, a gray area that has not been tapped into that could meet the demands and the needs of the industry, but change up how people are being taught throughout the industry or that's trying to get into the industry. And that's where Bridge of Cyber came from.
So how did you convince the industry that I'm pretty sure is pretty set in their way that they needed your holistic approach to security education?
That's a challenge right now. Is
Okay.
business owner, we know that when you have a business that requires a bit of education to show the value of that product or service, it's always an uphill battle, depending on what industry you're in, because now you got to go educate them and
Mhm.
hope that their mind receives the education to place the value that you place on the service and product. So that's one of my pain points challenges right now. And there's different strategies that I've incorporated where now I offer scholarships for students to subsidize their tuition to help with, you know, some of those pain points. But that's a pain point. That's where, that helps with that.
So what are some of the strategies? I know you said you offer scholarships, but that's
Hmm.
on the student side. But on the employer side, how do you get them to see that your approach is better than somebody else's approach who's been around doing it the same way they've been doing it for years? All right. So you said something that was really that jumped out at me. You said the 12-month internship.
Hmm.
So not only do you do training, but then you also secure an internship for the students that are in your program. All right. And that is your unique value or your unique selling proposition, right? Your USP to say that, hey, not only do I train them, but I'm getting them the practical experience that they need. I'm assuming that you also offer like soft skills training in
Hmm.
school as well,
Hmm.
right? So you're doing the full
The
package
full
so that
package.
when that person goes into whoever's company, whatever workforce it is, then they are ready, have been exposed to all of the things that they need to be exposed to. Is that right?
That's correct. And we have an in-house job placement
Mm,
department to where our recruiters work with our students on a very intricate level throughout their pipeline courses to help them be ready for placement upon graduation. So, the unique thing about Bridge Cyber is that everything is in-house. We're a one-stop shop. We provide the certifications. We help with if it's not an externship, an internship, or some type of apprenticeship. We work with we're working with the Department of Labor to even finalize the apprenticeship module. So it's like we're adding all these modules into one-stop shop to help feed the industry with practical and professionals to do the job. And the fact that we focus on cyber, but over time it's going to be emerging technology across the board. So we'll add new majors to our school where cyber is the first one. We'll do cloud and software development and IT and so forth to be a holistic school.
A lot of business owners really struggle with defining their target audience. So, what strategies did you employ to hone in on and talk to your target audience? Because you're very clear about who you're targeting. You've got two audiences. You've got the employers in cybersecurity, and
Right.
then you've got those students who are maybe embarking upon a second career who want to then transition into cybersecurity. So, how did you hone in on that, and how do you talk to those audiences?
I've always been, in my, now it's tapping into my former career. I mean, not career, but college professor tenure. I
Mhm.
always been fascinated with adult education, adult learners, and my success comes from that population. So to be able to have a vocational school targeting adult learnings, 18 to you know mid 40s. Now it's a school that's open to all ages, but that that population has been a popular group since
Okay.
day one.
Mhm.
Those are the ones that's still hungry for a change. They has the funds or they're ready to invest in themselves and understand the value behind investing in themselves. And they feel like they still have, you know, some they need to check off from that bucket list,
Mhm.
kind of going back to that.
Mhm.
So, um, you know, and to even narrow it down even more, we have more women than we have men
Mm.
that's come through our program in that same age bracket.
Mhm.
And most of our students, even from that standpoint, comes from New York, Texas, Florida, California. So a lot of Western states come to our school that's in Maryland, and so forth. So we've, just over time, just, utilize marketing analysis and just utilizing being observant to where does the interest come from. That's what we found out. And then from an employer standpoint, there's two sets of where it's more sets, but primarily there's two sets of employers in the industry. You have employers that's looking to fulfill jobs for people that's been in the industry for 5 to 7 years, that's have a clearance and they have a degree and they have more proficiency of their incumbents. But then you have the other employers that they don't care if you have a clearance. Are you able to get a clearance? It's a detailed in that fine print. But then two, do you have any degree? Do you have, if you don't have any experience, do you have these certifications, like multiple certifications? So to find the employers that wants the latter versus the former is something that we can feed into as a complete pipeline.
And that's filling a niche because a lot of
Yeah,
times people are like, you've got to have a degree. And a degree is not for everyone. It's
it's
not
not.
for everyone. And that does not, I fully believe that that does not indicate your ability to be successful and to be a contributing member of society to have a degree. I don't think that that's the case at all. So I'm glad to hear that you are really focusing on that segment of our society and providing opportunities for people that fall into that space. All right, we're a nation dealing with situations of injustice and are having more and more conversations around diversity in business. So talk a bit about diversity challenges that you have faced in the cybersecurity industry.
As a professional, where cyber is my career as a human being, um, I would definitely say that from that perspective, diversity is not as much of a challenge as it is in other industries. And I speak from being a Black man in cyber, you know, because I work full time for the federal government, right? And so it's not as much of a stagnant acceptance from a diversity standpoint or injustice or inequality from that perspective. And that's one thing I love about cyber, because cyber does not, does not always look at, what's on the outside. It's like, are you able to do this job?
Mm,
Can you show worth in your effort to complete this mission?
mhm,
Right. But then too, from a business owner standpoint, and to bring hope and inspiration and encouragement to, young adults, male and female, that are coming from other industries where there's a high levels of injustice and inequality and, female, value in the corporate setting. Like, it's, we receive those pain points when we sit down with our students and we learn about who they are before they walk through our doors, because that feed into how we develop our soft skills enrichment around our students,
mhm,
because we want to, then walk out of our doors from a graduation with the encouragement and the perseverance and the grit to say, this is yours, because cyber is all about, can you do the job?
mhm,
And you will find percentages of more success in cyber being a woman from a minority population than you would if you went to another industry.
mm,
And
mm.
I strongly feel that is the case.
Taking the leap into entrepreneurship is scary at best. Talk about what it was like for you.
So there's two chapters in that question, and I'm gonna speak to both of them briefly. The first one was 2008, where at that time I got laid off from the job that I loved so much.
Mm,
Like, this was that first time I felt that this job I would do to retirement, and
mm,
I would have no questions. Like, you would not have to even beg me. You would have to beg me to take a vacation from this job.
mm.
So I had this great experience, but then getting laid off, I was like, how? Like, I would be your most loyal employee. Like, I trained everybody else, like, and you
Yeah.
kept them, you know.
So then it kind of takes you back to what we were talking about in the beginning, that whole mental health, and how you associate yourself with what you do, and that becomes your worth, your value, your
Exactly.
worth. Yeah.
Exactly. So I felt like I lost a lot of myself,
Mm-hmm.
coming out of college, full-time job, and then get laid off like in that same year.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I was like, you know what? I'm smarter than this. I'm not gonna allow myself to accept the less than value of how you measure me, how you look at me. So I say, you know what? I'm never gonna feel like this again.
Mm-hmm.
And I became an entrepreneur. I didn't know how, I didn't know what. I even changed my degree in my graduate school to a master's in business administration, because I thought that was going to teach me about business, which that's a whole nother story.
I know I
But
have one of those too. It doesn't. That's why I'm the practical entrepreneur and I do entrepreneurship training because, yeah. So,
right. So that was, at the 23, 24 years of age, that was my leap out on faith to become an entrepreneur and utilize the intellectual talents that I had to figure out on my own. And so the business I had then was a STEM company, we are a STEM consulting company, where 5 years later, the very school that I got laid off from became my client. And
mm,
so how God works is amazing.
mhm, mhm.
So I did that business for 9 years and very successful. Ended up selling that business, ended up being $250,000 in value and huge success. Then I went into retirement. I was like, hey, I did my 9 years, I'm good. Hindsight to the next chapter where I took 2 years off, and then, I was, became a college professor at Anne Arundel Community College, and I was getting contracts and opportunities to speak in front of students from a cyber standpoint, often. And my wife said, "Why won't you do this for yourself?" And I said,
Hmm.
and so, it was a real contemplating, like, am I ready to do that as a business,
Hmm.
and so forth. So that's so Bridging Cyber came from the second chapter, or post retirement, of being an entrepreneur and how I got started and so forth. So
Of a pandemic, what did that, you said before that, things kind of dried up, things slowed down, but what is your plan for moving forward with Bridging Cyber?
so before the pandemic, we had the opportunity and the momentum to be a cyber training company. That's it.
Hmm.
We was doing the accelerated boot camps, and we was very successful, like very successful doing just that. But like I mentioned, the pandemic, provided the opportunity for us to redesign and redevelop the school to become more of a private career college. And that's where the transition, that's where we're going to right now, to where we're not just focusing on the training from let's get new certifications. It's more than that. It
Okay,
has to
now
be
you're
more.
into the holistic. That's where the holistic
Exactly,
comes from. Okay,
exactly.
got it.
So
Okay.
so we're phasing into, or phasing out, to increase the equity that we're
Hmm.
offering to our students over the next few months. It's a 2-year plan, but over the next 2 months. So our next phase is to focus on the infrastructure, to bring in that holistic learning application.
Got it. I end my show the exact same way every time. So the
Okay.
name of the show is Let Me Say This. So I always ask my guests to frame their final response in this way. Let me say this, and then give us your parting words of wisdom, some advice, some tidbits, anything that you want to say to the viewers of this show.
Let me say this: health is always wealth. You can be as successful as you want in life, but if you don't have the endurance to enjoy it, what was the point? Let me also say that dreams are real. Dreams happen twice, once in your mind and in reality. There's often that we allow our dreams to manifest in our minds, but it's up to us, with perseverance, determination, and grit and resilience, to bring it to reality. Dreams are real. What are yours?
So people are going to want to get in touch with you, Ricky West the second. So how are they going to be able to do that?
So social media is always the best. Social media, Bridging Cyber is the Facebook page that we're me and my team, we're constantly always in tune with our followers, and people that send us messages and so forth. You can reach out to me via email, ricky.west@bridgingcyber.com, and you can check us up out on our website, www.bridgingcyber.com. Again, we are very in tune with the messages that we received, so if you need to reach out to us, definitely.
All right. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure and an honor to speak with you today. I wish you many, many blessings and much success in all that you have coming forward. All right.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much, Ricky West the second, for being my guest on today's show.
Thank you.